Here with Delegate Ryan Weld, who is running for the West Virginia Senate. And Delegate Weld, I guess the first question is, tell the voters why you should replace Jack Yost in Charleston.
I think the biggest thing is my background experience. I'm a prosecuting attorney in Brooke County. Everybody knows that our area suffers from a major substance abuse problem. And in the past legislative session, we sent a number of bills that were going to address that problem over to the Senate from the House, and a lot of them failed. A lot of them failed for reasons for people don't really have the background over there to handle some of the problems that came up with a couple of the bills. Some of them were criminal law bills that dealt with out-of-state drug dealers, with transportation across state lines, dealing with people who manufacture and sell drugs around children, and no one had the background to get those kind of things done. And that really is one of the biggest motivating factors for me to get over to that side of the building.
We talk so much about the campaign cycle and all the things that go on. And one thing that's really struck me about this campaign cycle is we look at the governor's race, we look at the race for president, we look at some of our congressional races. Some of these campaigns have gotten a little chippy, gotten a little dirty at times, and now it seems as though your race is headed that way in a sense. And I know that you were at the station to kind of issue a public service announcement, if you will, that basically said that you were above all of that. And we talked to Jack Yost today, and he said it's just one of those instances, that's just how politics are. What is your response to some of the attacks being leveled against you in the recent weeks?
Well, if that's what politics is, then maybe that kind of situation has brought West Virginia to where it is now, with the situation that we're in with employment, with people leaving the state, because it's the same thing, repetitive and repetitive. You know, I want to make it clear that nothing negative is ever going to come from the committee to elect Ryan Weld. Nothing negative is ever going to come from me, because I'm too worried about the future. I'm focused on what I can do to change West Virginia. I'm focused on this race, and I'm focused on the positive things that I want to communicate to the people here of what I want to do and what I'm worried about. I'm too concerned with trying to let everybody know what I'm going to do, what I want to do, than to be negative about this race.
One of the key criticisms we hear on the campaign trail, and as you know, I've gotten around quite a lot in the last couple months, is that politicians are all talk and no action. What are you trying to do to ensure that that stigma isn't associated with you?
Well, I think you just kind of have to look at what I've done in my small time in the House. Some of the bills that I've sponsored that have been signed into law by the governor, some of the things that I've done for the area that I represent. When Wellsburg needed help getting, they needed some grant funding for the city building, needed some major repairs. That was something that I worked on. When the Washington Pike PSD needed some financial assistance because they had a huge water pump break in February there. That was something that was big for me that I had been working on for quite some time. Some of the laws that we've done, my provisional plea bill that was signed into law by the governor last year, really is something that I've heard from other prosecutors around the state that they're using as a tool to kind of help people who are suffering from substance abuse. So you just have to kind of look at the record of the individual and see if they really are one of those people that has just gone to Charleston and been all talk and no action, or someone who gets things done. And I think that I fall into the camp of people who gets things done, and I want to continue to do that for the people in the community that I live in.
We know that there's a heroin and drug problem in West Virginia, but maybe what everyone doesn't know, or maybe what everyone hasn't been able to grasp, is how we tackle it and how we affect real change. How would you do that in the legislature, or continue to do that?
I think you got to look at it on a two-pronged approach. There are two ways to attack it. And the first is through the criminal law. Are we giving our law enforcement officers the tools that they need to be able to go after the people who are out of state, who may never set foot into the state of West Virginia, but push their product through their street-level dealers? Are we giving judges the options that they need to sentence these people? And the second part is, are we giving people who suffer from substance abuse the options that they need? Because if we don't help people who suffer from substance abuse break that, get past that, then we're looking at a situation that's cyclical. As a prosecutor in Brooke County, I see people at the defendant's table that I saw 2 months ago, that I saw a year ago, that I saw years before when I was working there before I graduated from law school. So if we pay a little bit on the front end of it, we help people that we're not going to see again in the courtroom and have to put them in jail, because we all know what the jail bill costs, but we don't know exactly what it's going to cost to help people. And I think that that cost probably isn't nearly as great as housing someone in the penitentiary for 1 to 5 years.
The Northern Panhandle's biggest problem or biggest challenge right now is what, in your opinion?
I think without a doubt it's our substance abuse problem. I think that it's what is really keeping our workforce from becoming what it can be. You know, a lot of times in court I see people who are in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s. There's nothing wrong with them except that they have a substance abuse problem, and that is what is keeping them from becoming a productive member of West Virginia's economy. And so I think that if we're kind of able to chip away at that and break that cycle of addiction and keep the drugs from out of state coming in as much as they are now, I think we got a shot. But until then, we're just going to have to continue doing work on that.
The biggest difference between Ryan Weld and Jack Yost is what?
I think it's just what each individual focuses on. I mean, I think I've made it clear that my focus, because of my background, is what I think is our greatest problem, and that is the substance abuse issue that West Virginia faces. It's not just the Northern Panhandle, it's the southern part of the state, it's the Eastern Panhandle, it's the central part of the state. And so that expertise, that knowledge that I can take back with me to Charleston and start working on these things and lend what, what I've gone through and what I've worked on here at home, take that down and get things done. And it's a matter of what you focus on and what you make your priority, and for me that's what it is.
One of the things, and I'll make this my last question, one of the things that endears you to the people that support you is that you have this knack for getting out and, to a certain degree, getting dirty when it's needed. Fallensby, for example, you were out there with people in jeans and you were helping. Will you continue to do that, or will you be able to continue to do that as a senator?
Oh, of course. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a senator or if you're a delegate. I mean, those are your people. I mean, you got to fight for them. And it doesn't matter if you're fighting for them for a grant for the city building or if you're fighting for them out of mud and floodwaters. It doesn't matter. I mean, those are your people. That's who you fight for. And so for me, it'll just continue. I've been, speaking of Fallensby, I'd been through 2 floods at my parents' house in Wellsburg. It's absolutely miserable to have to go through that. And in Fallensby, it was all we could do. Everybody was an all-hands-on-deck thing to try to get that cleaned up.
Delegate Weld, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good luck on Election Day.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.